Hello there. Hello, good morning. Happy Wednesday to you. It's a mild day here in New York City. The temperature right now is 63 degrees here in the city. In Guyana, when I checked, it was 77 degrees, 77 degrees with lots of rain. I'm told lots of rain. Some people are saying that the rain is accompanied by thunder, and they're scared of the thunder. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm talking about adults. But I was saying, when I was told that there's lots of thunder and persons are scared of the thunder. The claps were so hard, were so loud that they're scared. I said the thunder is pronouncing or predicting the doom that is coming over our beautiful country because of quite a number of funny things. I would call them irregularities, and to some extent, some of them are even illegalities. But I guess that's the nature of the beast that we live with today. Wednesday, the 16th of June is the date. Today is a very big day internationally. Today is the day when the presidents of the USA and of Russia are meeting. They're currently meeting in the summit. It was it was so um, compelling that I watched all the way through, man. I watched from the time they started the broadcast this morning. I followed on my way home, and I have one ear cued into what is going on there, and the other ear cued into what's going on here. Of course, my eyes are all in here. But we're in some troubling times in Guyana. We've entered upon some troubling times. Um, I don't know if I've ever seen a period like this before, where the government is extremely brazen. I would say it's not just a case where the government is brazen. The government is ridiculously bold in taking certain steps, executing certain actions and plans against the Guyanese people. And I'm still kind of appalled at the fact that Guyanese are just sitting down, taking this thing, um, laying back, and just probably making a complaint here and there orally, and there's nothing behind it. I'm just kind of wondering what's going on. The world is moving forward, and on moving on this. So the world is on fire with activity, but what are you going to say? But today we're fortunate that in spite of having a marathon session, in spite of having endured a marathon session, not last night, the night before, so that would make it Monday night. In spite of enduring that marathon session on Monday night, we are able to have the company of Mr. The Honorable MP, Attorney at Law Khemraj Ramjattan with us today, second time around, and we having Mr. Ramjattan here on the show. Like I said, in a very troubling time. Mr. Ramjattan, good morning and welcome back to the In Perspective show.
Thanks very much, Branford, and glad to be on your show. Second time, I think it is. And it is rather gloomy here in Georgetown. I haven't gone out yet, but I will soon be to take a look at what might have happened with this heavy rain. And but it is very heavy this morning, the rain, and again the very overcast conditions in Georgetown. I understand it's almost right up to my Coney area that rain has been falling. I don't know with the other areas, but terrible rains that will certainly affect a number of Guyanese, especially those in low-lying areas.
Well, I want to jump in. I've got I've got a dozen questions that I that I want to pose to you, and I trust we can get them all in this 1 hour period. I have another engagement at 9:20, so definitely I'll have to wrap up within the hour, just beyond. And I know you have some other engagements as well. You said you need to go and assess the situation out there, so definitely we've got to. But I want to jump into your measure of discomfort, uh, yours and your colleagues' measure of discomfort that was forced upon you on Tuesday night, I believe it was, when um, the PPP being bent on their exploit, their attempt to oust Mr. Patterson from the seat of the chair of the Public Accounts Committee. They held a session. I think I was told that parliamentary session started at 2 and went on until somewhere in the vicinity of 5 in the morning. What I mean, like we are still wondering what gave rise to the need for these people to be so vicious and vicious and uncaring and callous and open in their activity in terms of trying to get Mr. Patterson off of that committee.
Well, the obvious reason is that they do not want, just like with Vincent Adams, who was expert at the environmental issues with petroleum and also the environment, you have a top class candidate in relation to public accounts, and the fact that he could do a number on them in that body called the Public Accounts Committee. They did not want him. We have 3 other junior members, you can call them, Mahesh and Ganesh Mahipal, and Juretta Finance, and the other person is Jermaine Figueroa. Um, it, it, David had been there for a number of years now, and even I think in the very first AFC party's victory, he was there. So he knows the job. He knows how to scrutinize these things. And that there is a total arrogance about the PPP too. That they feel that with their majority, they could apply what is called majoritarian politics to knock off who they don't like. And it's that arrogance and that is playing out. They have absolutely no right to appoint who the chairperson should be. That is exclusively the preserve and the jurisdiction of the main opposition. And they are now fabricating a variety of matters against him, talking about the Auditor General's report, criticizing certain things that happened under his ministry. Well, when it comes to those matters, it's your permanent secretary that has to answer to the Auditor General.
Mm-hmm.
Ministerial failures is something that is separate and apart from those kinds of things. And they want to put 2 and 2 and get 22 instead of 4 by virtue of attaching certain misdemeanors, as it were, onto David Patterson so as to get him out. Well, it really didn't work. And they lied about how he was a bully, because they're saying that because he wasn't also taking the instruction from the Speaker of the House, which was not so, and which people like Ganesh Mahipal managed to prove that it was not so by virtue of bringing what is called the Hansard, is the record of the proceedings of what happened in the committee and also in the larger parliament. Him bringing that to show that indeed all these allegations are all lies. They were giving the impression that he was not taking the instruction of the Speaker. Well, indeed, the Speaker wrote to him saying, you must line up that no confidence motion in the committee for purposes of it being deliberated on. And the next day, the Speaker kind of stopped and halted the work of the Parliament and all its committees. So how could the member, chairperson David Patterson, proceed now to deal with the instruction of the speaker? And so the timelines were there to prove that he could not have done anything. Yesterday you instructed me. Today you closed Parliament down, but that was for the 98 days. And when you close Parliament down, all the committees and so on, the staff and so on, they're closed down literally. So you couldn't get the thing done. But the important point here, Branford, is that we struggled hard, really, really hard, for that standing order. It is a standing order that seeks to give balance to the powers in the committee that is scrutinizing the financial system of the existing government. So for 300 years in England, the practice was in this one single committee, as against so many others, that the chairperson must go to the opposition member. Hundreds of years practice. It was also the practice for all the years that we knew Guyana, British Guyana and then Guyana. And in 2006, although we relied on the English position, we then made a standing order to the effect that the main opposition shall appoint and select the chairperson. So from 2006, it became part of our standing orders, which are written rules for the governance of our parliament. And so when you give the position there to the opposition to elect their chairperson, we did exactly that. We named our four, David Patterson, Figueroa, and Ganesh and Jureta. And then when the speaker at that first meeting asked who is going to be the chairperson, and the four then named David Patterson, which we all in the opposition had agreed to, then it is David Patterson. The confidence that must be resident in that Public Accounts Committee as to chairmanship is something for the opposition. It is not a no confidence from the governing members. Otherwise, that standing order will be violated, because they got 5 there, we got 4, and if the standing order said that the main opposition must select the chairperson, their 5 cannot in any way be allowed to interfere with who the chairperson must be, because the chairperson is a person who is found fit and proper by the opposition. But it seems that they do not want to understand that. And in their, arrogance, they feel that they can now, with their majority inside of that committee, go on to remove him by virtue of a no confidence in him. Well, committees are but microcosms of the larger parliament. So when this matter came up, a number of legal advice was sought of the clerk, and the clerk of the parliament told the 5 members of the governing party that you cannot bring a motion of no confidence in the committee. They didn't that. They didn't regard that as bullyism. When taking the advice and not bringing it up for purposes of what is called deliberation, they said that that is bullyism. You understand? Then they went to the speaker, and then the speaker says, well, okay, that it should be brought up. I don't know where he got his advice from, but it was to be brought up. But of course, the next day, the parliament was closed down, and that lasted for 98 days. I'm certain that in view of the 24-hour notice that the member had, he would have brought it up. But by that time, they realized too, and I think they checked with their lawyers, that they couldn't bring it in that committee. They couldn't bring it in that committee. So they had to come now to the larger parliament. And at the larger parliament, they said that they could bring it. But the same logic and legal argumentation that I made, that they cannot move a no confidence in that scenario because it's on the confidence of the opposition party that you select the chairmanship. But they proceeded with it, although we argued the point, and then they voted because they have the majority. And so it is a kind of a majoritarian tyranny. It is a dismantling of that guardrail of the financial architecture being properly scrutinized, because it is not the right of the government party to knock off somebody they ain't got the confidence in. It is the right of the opposition as to who they got confidence in.
Right.
That point seems not to sink into these jagabats inside of that PPP. They are really, really mad and delusional and running haywire now. You know, it is crazy what is happening in that parliament. And for a person who fought hard for that thing, it was myself, the survivors for that fight was myself, Gail Teixeira, and the speaker in 2006, when we fought for that main opposition must select the chairperson, and it can't go and damage that now by a no confidence motion. So they must expect some defiance from us, because that resolution now that they would have said have been adopted by a majority of the parliament is a resolution that is in violation of the standing orders of the parliament. So you have a collision course here now. So I don't know what will happen now, but I rather suspect now that they have passed this resolution, the chairperson, David Patterson, could still go on. I'm trying to do some research now as to what can happen, because it is obviously inherently illegal and unparliamentary and a violation of the standing orders. And all of these things now is showing that this government of the day would go and breach even the rules that they fought for, and you know, to damage these guardrails of democracy, and especially the one touching the financial architecture of the country.
So now that they have done that, is there any possibility that the opposition can take legal action in this regard to ensure that there's some sanity, some amount of sanity that could be restored to the parliament in terms of observing the rules of the chamber, and as well as in you know, in the bigger picture of recognizing and adhering to the constitutions of Guyana?
Well, the courts have ruled on these matters, and as a lawyer, I'll tell you, there ought to be some hesitation before going to the court because of the fact of those rulings. When it comes to the doctrine of separation of powers, the internal workings of the parliament, the internal workings of the judiciary, the internal workings of the executive branch, that's the cabinet, and as to what happens inside there, the courts generally do not want to deal with. They kind of exclude themselves from having jurisdiction to deal with the internal operations and workings of these various branches of government. It's like the judges, which judge should sit in the matter, or you know, how they should work around, how they write up their decisions and all of that. We in the executive can be critical of that. If the arrangement is being made internally there, we can be critical of that and things like that. That is something that is a margin of appreciation that goes exclusively to that jurisdiction. And that is what Ian Chang had ruled in a case that was brought by Anil Nandalal in relation to when we had increased the committees. Previously, prior to 2015, the PPP had within these various committees of parliament only 7 members. And we had broadened it to make it 9 members. And the standing orders had said that we could do that. We can expand it right up to 10 members, but we kept it at 9 members. They went to court saying that we could not increase it like that. And we said, no, this is a matter for the exclusive preserve of parliament, because under our parliamentary constitution called the standing orders, we have the power to do that. And the court agreed with us that whatever you do inside there, once it is done, well, fine. But there can be some brilliant lawyer who can find an argument. I know the genius of our Guyanese lawyers to find an argument to ensure that it could make the courts have some jurisdiction. Questions like pecuniary interest, if they are affected, very much be applicable in the situation. But I haven't given much thought to it. I wanted to make the argument to the speaker that indeed that this thing should not be allowed. But of course it was allowed, the vote was taken, and that's basically the end of the matter at a parliamentary level. We will have to seek now whether it violated the Constitution or it violated pecuniary interest of anybody, to the extent now that the courts can have a say.
I would want to hasten to say that I don't know, but I'm not a legal person, but from a layman's standpoint, I would want to feel that the mechanism was the best mechanism that could have been put in place to ensure that the government doesn't behave like a runaway train with taxpayers' money.
That was the whole purpose of it.
Yeah, so if I feel that we are violated, the Guyanese people, the rank and file taxpayer in Guyana has been violated, because you no longer have that absolute control of the monitoring process that will ensure that your monies are spent wisely and in our interest.
That is the whole purpose of why the PPP want David Patterson now. Because if you do not have a sharp mind, like a Vincent Adams on environmental and oil issues, you can then go and do whatever the hell you want. And they now know that they can do whatever they want. Although he's still going to be a member there, they haven't have no confidence in him membership, because of course they can't do that. The disqualifications of, they could have brought an a motion against his membership too, because they could very well have done that. But the law would have been that you can't disqualify somebody from the position of a membership. I do not know if the law can go that far as to chairmanship too, as I argued, because I believe that it is the parliamentary rules, it is totally wrong. But David would still be inside of that thing, the parliamentary, the accounts committee. But it is because you want him as chairperson, just like you wanted Vincent Adams as the boss man inside of the Environmental Protection Agency. So
Right.
they feel that the transparencies that could be brought out as a result of the questioning of a far better mind, get rid of him, just like they get rid of Vincent Adams. So that is what they're doing. Everybody that could ensure a couple of things, like Paul Slow, who could know how to deal with disciplinary matters and promotions in a police force. Get rid of him. Get rid of Conway. You know, and so they're going to get their set of acolytes who are going to do their bidding, so that the president, unlike calling up Paul Slow and Paul Slow arguing back with me, you can't call me up. They will get somebody there that will be a receptacle of the instructions, and then the execution of the instructions being done by those persons. That's what they want. They are what is called control freaks. I came up with that term, control freakism, because it aptly describes how the PPP behaves. And coming from the belly of the beast, I can tell you that that is what, and it comes directly from Jagdeo, who is really serving his third term. Look at all of that thing with the Sputnik things. He made the arrangement with the Sheikh of United Arab Emirates to come down here and be a middleman, and we end up paying $600 million more for the Sputnik vaccine, which has not been WHO approved yet. And he couldn't buy it. We now understand that the thing works. But why not go to the embassy of the Russians here in Guyana and tell them that we would like to have, because the Russians have always helped poor countries in the world. They try to do it as part of their diplomacy. And you could have gotten it at $10 instead of paying now $21 almost for the thing. And I'm certain that there will be kickbacks there, big time kickbacks, just like what happened at the Skeldon Sugar Factory, when he self-appointed and say, I want that Chinese company to build the bloody thing. and the Brazilians could have built it for $100 million US less. So, and now the whole thing collapsed at Skeldon.
But
is a lot of collapses all over the place.
I'm happy that you did refer to the COVID-19, the vaccine situation, because that's one of the questions I had to ask. That, and I'll put three questions together here. There is, I think, in today's Chronicle, an indication that the government is going to be spending, I think it is 1.5 billion Guyana dollars on the sugar estates. They say they're going to rejuvenate the sugar industry. I am not sure why they're doing that when one of their own men said that the sugar industry cannot come back. And then, in addition to that, there is this allegation. I think it was one of your colleagues who raised it. There's an allegation against the government of them squandering the consolidated funds. I think within a couple of months, they would have expended 37 or 38 billion Guyana dollars from the consolidated fund, but nobody knew that they were taking it. So, what is your response to inquiries in those regards?
Well, the government can take monies out of the consolidated fund, a portion of which is called the contingency fund. Well, it is a separate fund, but under the Constitution, we have the requirements placed there where governments can take monies out of what is called the contingency fund, and before they bring an appropriation or an explanation for it inside of Parliament. Generally, the rule is that before you expend monies from the consolidated fund or taxpayers' monies, you have to bring an appropriation. An appropriation is an estimate as that, look, we need $20 billion for what purposes, and you state the purposes, and then Parliament will give you the approval. Generally, it will be approved in Parliament because the PPP got the 33 majority. Good. Now, in this case, we know that we got a COVID situation. Vaccines we knew had to be bought, but they did not put in that kind of money in the budgetary allocation as to how much vaccine they will buy and from whom in the budget. Because in the budget, we then ask all the question on these line items. But they went into the contingency fund saying that it is an emergency situation. And that was from the 1st of April, probably significant, April the 1st kind of arrangement. And they then gone and buy it via an intermediary who had come in here to meet Jagdeo and them. And you probably saw it last night being played. The Sheikh Al Maktoum, who is a man of very shady character and questionable character.
Yes.
Dealing with a whole set of con artists from Norway and so on that are under investigation in Norway right now. And what he did, apparently, is that he went and stumped up his monies to the Russians, got millions and millions of doses, and now he's reselling it back. Now, had we gone to the Russians, they obviously would have given us. But this fella Jagdeo like to deal with intermediaries. Why, I don't know. But you could
the kickbacks.
We all know, right? And this is what has happened. Just like that, he wanted a commissioner to come to advise us in Guyana about security matters from New York that turn up to and end up in jail.
Yeah.
A whole set of things. He didn't want the British security sector report. Right now, the British security sector report, everything has been dismantled. The whole police force now has gone back to square one as we got them prior to 2015. And that is what is happening to the police force. That is also why he wants to create his own regional force. And that is also a thing that we found out there inside of the scrutiny of the monies that were for some Guyana Defense Force. And when we asked the question of Gail, what is the money going for? She said crime fighting. Well, if monies are going for crime fighting, it ought to come under the police force,
Yeah.
Police Act. But they got problems. They don't trust some of the policemen or most of the policemen and so on now. They only trust their fellas who they wanted Paulslow to what you call promote. And so they're now just like what they did in that period of time when they went and they get extrajudicial policemen in the form of Roger Khan. Now I understand they're coming in inside, forming a regional force headed by another Khan, I understand, that will now do their bidding. So where you now might probably have trained policemen doing crime fighting at the regional level now. You get you set up some people there, probably army people, and you do your business there. You shoot who you want for shoot and things like that. That is not how you run country. If the money is going to come in for purposes of crime fighting, it must come under the commissioner of police because he's the CEO of the police act. But no, they gone and give it to army people. Army people are not trained to do crime fighting. And this nonsense that they're getting on with is again showing their arrogance of being authoritarian and autocratic in what they do in this country. I told them, Gail Teixeira, that it's unconstitutional and illegal how they're spending taxpayers' monies. You cannot set up regional enforcement offices like that and not have it under who is the reporting, what is the reporting structures? What is the hierarchy of that force? And so on. She couldn't answer anything. She's saying because of the crime, and they don't want to admit that crime is getting higher, but they want to create a regional task force for all these people and over.
So when we talk about regional task force, are we speaking about the 10 administrative regions?
That's right. Regions? Yes, within each region, they are going to set up a special kind of, and she said it will be a mixture of policemen and soldiers to do crime fighting.
So whose command would they command? I mean, like in America here, each city has its own police.
She did not want to answer that question when I said about the reporting structure. But more and more I'm getting it is somebody called Omar Khan, who is going to head that kind of thing. That is the information I'm getting. And it is crazy what is going to happen because you cannot have taxpayers' monies being spent towards an institution that is administratively created for crime fighting. We have a legislation that governs crime fighting. It's the Police Act. And for them to now go and create what is called a third force, as it were, you get the army that will deal with the national border issues. You get the army that will deal with national security issues and all of that. But public security, which is a crime fighting matter, is largely under the police force. And that is where you must spend the money. And so this thing has to be further scrutinized. And we have to get who and who will be heading it, what and what arrangements they have, and whether they report directly to the president as against reporting to the chief of staff or the commissioner of police, because they seem not to have faith in the chief of staff and the commissioner of police. So they want a direct thing. This will be like the presidential guards of, like when you have them in those countries like in the Middle East, that protects the president at the various regions now. And they will report directly to the president. And that is absolute nonsense because that is not the check and balance of the system. So we are getting into an authoritarian state now where they are going to create their own security system and, get the money from parliament and use the ruse, use the explanation that this is for crime fighting.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're saying that the serious crimes are down 26%, why is there a need to create a regional force? They're saying that under their watch, the crime fighting has gone down so far 26%. If it's gone down, why look for create a regional force?
Well, it means the police force is doing well.
Precisely so.
Whatever is the existing arrangement is doing well. But as I have told you just now, they want to create a security system to protect the president and his men, because a lot of places they go now, people are shouting them down. What are you doing about the flooding? What are you doing about the COVID deaths? We're starving here. We ain't got food. We ain't got nothing. They now jump and gone and create regional forces. And this is but for their protection,
Hmm.
and
So
that
the
is what
state,
it's all about.
the,
And within the regions, they're going to get these GDF officers that will be, sworn to them, and they're going to find out who are the dissidents in those regions, so that they will report back to the president, and they will know how to deal with them, or with a combination of that task force members, they are now going to deal with those people. It is but setting up an architecture here for the demolition of dissension within Guyana. That's how
so
I see it.
I want to ask this most important question then, because I don't know if you had the opportunity to listen to or watch there was an interview recently in which one of the reporters from I think it's MSNBC here, had an interview with one of the journalists. Well, I don't even think he's a journalist. I think he's a member of the governing party in Belarus. And he asked him, how were you folk able to change this kind of democracy, semi-democracy that you had in Belarus to this dictatorship? And the guy said, all that we needed to, anywhere in the world, you need to set up a dictatorship. All you have to do is win an election, then put systems in place to change all of the rules, all of the laws. Put systems in place that will make the government the supreme power. And as long as you can do that and you force the people to accept that, then it's all well and good. Having listened to that interview, I looked at the situation in Guyana, and in my opinion, it mirrored exactly what this man said you needed to do. So, my question is, what does the parliamentary opposition intend to do to ensure that that does not happen in Guyana?
Well, it is bringing it to the members of the public, talking about it, educating the citizenry that they would have to put a halt to it. Because other than that, I don't know, unless you want to go in the streets and start demonstrations, which we can do. Political action of that nature can be taken, because that is what won the semi-democracy, or the democracy that Belarus initially got.
Mm-hmm.
And it is true. The PPP is taking its rules out of this dictator's handbook that was presented by Putin and a number of other countries and so on, in around that area. So that is what is happening again. A retrograde step is being made here by them. Oh yes, well, they are installed in government, so they want to change all of these rules now. And little by little, a creeping dictatorship being formed, and an erosion one by one of all the rules that we normally apply. And that is what we did. We knocked off all those who were rogue elements in the police force. We ensured that the institution became professionalized. We brought in the Scotland Yard man to help with the recommendations as to how you do a number of things, and how you set up various professionalized bodies to scrutinize the actual policemen and so on, and how to deal with their disciplining and things like that. Now the whole thing has been dismantled. And, it is very difficult accepting now for people like myself and Joe and so many other people, yourself included, to say, well, what the hell is the PPP and the parliamentarians of the PPP doing when they're breaking up all these institutions of democracy that we have so fragilely here in Guyana? So those are the things we got to do. We also, in yourself in New York, you'll have to mention all of these things to some of the congressmen there, for them to put pressure. The pressures that can be put by the diplomatic community is also helpful,
Mm-hmm.
very, very helpful. And the pressures that we can put also, by virtue of telling people that they are doing wrong things, is how a democracy works. So that whenever you have another elections, people will say, well, they can't be in there, broken up all the guardrails of democracy. And that is how it is. But other than that, I don't want a violent confrontation. I am regarded as having saying this thing too often. A lot of people are critical of me. They want to jump in the streets and all of that. But you got to understand that Jack Dale knows this game. He's very clever.
Exactly.
The minute black people gone on the street there, he will put some of his black thugs inside of that crowd, start pelting up some coolie businessmen, and then the whole set of people that don't like the PPP, who are also East Indians, will then congeal back into the PPP. That's my strategy in this thing, that we must not go out and do any kind of madness that people are telling us to do. At some point in time, there will be the necessity, if indeed the institutions are further dismantled, because we have an obligation to defy injustice, an obligation to defy dictatorship. But in the meantime, we need to carry it as much as possible by virtue of these means, talking to people and telling them how they're wrong, so that the right thinking people of Guyana, whether they're Amerindians, East Indians, or Black Guyanese, they must understand that this government is no good for them, the country, or its future.
I have been making a proposal for the longest while. It seems as though no one is paying attention except the PPP. I have proposed, since during the elections period and immediately post-elections, that the APNU AFC administration, or the coalition rather, dispatch a team of what I would call localized ambassadors of the coalition to the diaspora, and have those persons move through from London, England, come through to the USA, go through to Canada, and really interact, engage the supporters in the diaspora there or here, so that people will understand what really is going on, and they will hear from the horse's mouth on the ground, and we can have a good interaction. I have not seen that happen as yet, but we took note of the fact that the PPP dispatched Kwame McCoy, took advantage of this farce that they had the other day in on Liberty and Lefforts, where they call that area Little Guyana, and they sent Kwame McCoy to be the spokesperson, and he had, I understand, several engagements, to the extent that one of the engagements, some people were pushing back against it, went in there and started protesting, and they called the NYPD, believing that the NYPD would have really behaved like the Guyana police force members, come and brutalize people, but that didn't happen. They just asked them peacefully to, if they don't want y'all inside, stay outside, but you could protest outside. You know, is there a plan within the coalition to have a team come here in the diaspora, wherever the Guyanese people are, and meet with the folk, share the vision for the future, tell us what we need to make Guyana be a place to live comfortably again, or anything? Is that anything on the cards for the near future?
Well, yes, I am absolutely certain. I want to be over there. We were waiting for our second vaccines. We have now been vaccinated. We have a big flooding problem. I don't want to leave the flooding problem to go to New York right now, because you want to be here. There might be other people who have gone. I understand that some of our parliamentarians were in New York. But also, we are here on this thing, and you got so much diaspora people watching too. It is not as if you have to be in New York or London or Montreal or Ontario or on the Caribbean islands. These things are all across the place, and more our statements on these issues can be understood by those who can read from the diaspora. And it is important, yes, that we show a presence, and we will show a presence there. But there might be reasons why, because sometimes you want a date with a certain senator. He then says that he's on recess, and a number of things. I remember when we had to meet Senator Cardin as an AFC, myself and Raphael Trotman, about 3 or 4 occasions, then we got a date. And sometimes when you get that date, you got to go to court. For some of us at that time, practicing lawyers and so on, the inconvenience of it all. But they ask for what is called dossiers. They ask for what is called dossiers as to what it is that you propose. And I understand they read these things very thoroughly, and then they ask the question of the administration and so on. And that is what we have been doing. We have been writing up all about the almost 2,000 people that have been sacked as a result and terminated as a result of this ethnocratic state that the PPP wants to create now. We have also spoken about the sugar, and we are also talking about all the other guardrails, and we have put those in documents and have sent it to Sarah, and she has to forward them to those people. But we certainly can come to the New York there and deal with these issues. And I am certain that there is a plan for purposes of getting across there and ensuring that this is even talked to face and so on.
That's good, because I mean, like, personal interaction helps to gin up support and make get people into the mood of whereas they would have been just saying, well, we don't know what they're doing, we can give support, but the people being on the ground helps people to feel, oh yeah, yeah, I am here, I am with them, and so on. So I want to move back to this security thing that you were alluding to earlier. I am reading that Gail Teixeira. I don't know why we still have that woman running around the place with the kind of authority that she
No,
tries
well,
to wield.
let's respect her. She is a very important person for the PPP, and the PPP has every right to put who they want there, just like how we have the right to put the chairperson. But they're disrespecting that, but we must respect their positions. And if their position is to put Gail there, well, we can't row with that.
Yeah, but I'm not talking. I'm not necessarily speaking about her abilities. I'm speaking about her
Mhm.
disrespect for the Guyanese people generally,
Yeah,
and
well,
for
that
our intelligence. Because now I'm seeing here that she's saying that um, she is she put forward this thing. I think it was passed. I'm not sure. A request for money to buy some kind of shark boat from a company up here named the Shark Boat Manufacturers or something like that. And her thing is that the shark boat will protect Guyana from any invasion on the part of Venezuela. Now, who is so dumb to believe that Venezuela shares such a large land border with Guyana, and you are gonna go all the way to the Atlantic Ocean to launch an attack on Guyana when you could just send your soldiers or fly over Guyana? Venezuela has F-16 fighters and all that. What boat in the Atlantic Ocean could protect Guyana from Venezuelan invasion? I'm not sure
Danford,
what
let
you've
me
heard.
make it quite clear. Let me make it quite clear
Mhm.
that we can't in any way defend any assault that comes from Venezuela. We don't have F-15s, we don't have the Coast Guard vessels, whatever. So Gail probably, in one of those elusive moments, might have said that it is for the defense against Venezuela. That is trash. We cannot. But we need Coast Guard vessels, modernized types,
Mhm.
in our maritime zone protection against piracy, and also to know the location of whether there are Venezuelan boats and all of that within our territory, and whosoever might be strange activities that are being with the cocaine dealers and all of that. And so, indeed, what I and we inside of the APNU AFC government had proposed that once in for a second term, we would have increased the Coast Guard's assets.
Mhm.
What we find, however, is that they did not go to a procurement process to buy some of these items, like this Marine Patrol vehicle that costs 11.1 million US dollars. But sometimes you do those things, and I must tell you, I'm not defending Gail here, but
Mhm.
some, like when we buy fire engines, we buy it from a place called Angloco in England because it
Right.
is reputed to be the high-end fire engines of the world, and so on. And they make this necessary adaptations for what is called the tropical zone and things
Mhm.
like that. So Metal Sharks were prior used as the company for that purpose. But what we are telling Gail is that they must not go and buy these things in the darkness of non-scrutiny by us parliamentarians. Bring the thing up. Bring
Mhm.
inside of the parliament. Let us scrutinize it, because for all you know, that can bring out a couple of things that can be in the interest of the Guyana. And that is the nature of a democracy. You want an opposition to scrutinize the spending. And after you would have answered the question, we would say, well, very well, go and buy the bloody thing because we need it. It will stop piracy. It will help to protect the or at least give some protection to the ExxonMobil platform, which is a function of us to do to ensure that nobody go blow up that platform and things like that, and so on. So, but they don't want to do it that way. They go into contingency, haul out $11.1 million and go and spend it without the scrutiny of the parliamentarian. They only now come and report it that we spend it out. What they should have done is that they should have foreseen that this was an expenditure, put it in the budget, and we would have scrutinized it in the budget. Right now, we can only, because they don't buy the bloody thing. They don't spend money. We can't stop that. And so
that's what I'm saying. I mean, like,
critique of it in that context.
Just to tell us that it's for monitoring the coastline, make sure that there's no piracy and all of that. Yeah, but to tell us about invasion of Venezuela, I don't know who she was talking to.
Well, that is why I say it's an elusive moment.
There's another thing that is beating the airwaves here, and it's right up your street. This new set of bills that are being tabled, that are, I think they said that they're going to be amendments to some of the acts, and the Bar Association took umbrage to the acts, the bills being put together, and they weren't consulted. Give us some insight into what these bills, because they're saying that these bills are designed to take away some Guyanese rights. What really are these bills about?
Well, I haven't given much thought because I was planning to do my speech and all of that. And coming out of that, because these bills were tendered Monday gone.
Oh, okay.
Were only tendered Monday, but I heard that they wanted one with DNA extraction from suspects. Normally, when you're a suspect for a crime, we can take out your photograph, we can take out your thumbprint, and we keep a record of it there as a suspect. In some countries, they've gone in now deeply into DNA testing. So you can extract a sample of blood or whatever is the DNA testing. They can now and put it on your record. So assuming they find any DNA on people on crime scenes, they can know who might be a suspect. And if you get a suspect's pool bank, you can go in your computerized system like the Americans do under these crime scenes investigations and so on, and you can quickly find out if it matches, so you can catch your suspect. But it has human rights implications. I understand that the Attorney General said it was a piece of legislation that was left in my office there, and that he plucked it up and brought it up. Well, and then he's giving the impression to the Bar Association is a Ramjattan bill that he bring up and so on. Now, you must take the blame if you brought it up and bring it to Parliament. This guy now is being critical of me, saying that it was there. You get a lot of bills being proposed by a lot of non-governmental organizations, diplomatic people, and so on, and multilateral agencies saying that you got to do this bill, you got to do that bill, and so on. But if you as the government minister brought it up, it becomes your bill. Why attach Ramjattan's name? I remember the same thing they did when, that famous fella, what is his name? Sheriff, when he was caught in America. They all know the fella, and then they brought up this thing. You know who had introduced us to the fella? It was Khemraj Ramjattan. Gosh. But the trouble with some of these bills is that they are not thinking them through. Even when it came to my office, I did not bring it up because you got to think through some of the human rights aspects of these matter before you bring them for the first reading in Parliament. I couldn't recall, because so many bills are brought into as a minister, and I indicated to him I can't recall that bill at all. But obviously, and having not brought it, I didn't think it was right to be brought. And so that is where I ended the conversation with him. What these people are onto is all kinds of other things, but their core functions. So the Attorney General probably got in mind with the Maktoum guy and everybody else. He probably thinking about other things rather than how do we deal with these issues. Why didn't he pass the bill to the Bar Association before he brought it?
And
There's
that's what they're
another
saying.
bill I understand that might do with cross-dressing. Now, the cross-dressing one will have certain probably personal objections, people with personal objections against it. But it is in accordance with a ruling made by the CCJ that you can't, what you call, discriminate on the grounds of sex. If a man want to wear a dress and a woman want to wear pants and whatever, cross-dressing, there was a law before that says
Yeah.
that was illegal.
Right.
But these cross-dressers people carried the matter to court, and at the CCJ, it was ruled that that law was unconstitutional because it was discriminatory. So what we are doing now, I think, is to right that situation as a result of the CCJ. Now, they're going to get a lot of people, religious people, Christian people, who say, well, no, that is not so, and so on, and so on, and so on. We're going a little too far. But as a human rights person, I feel that we have to put into law that which the CCJ has ruled on and which is respecting human rights and non-discrimination. Of course,
I
we
don't.
must have what is called persons with conscience voting to be allowed to vote on it with a conscience, and they can do. This is one area where, as a parliamentarian, I believe that we must give our parliamentarians a vote of conscience.
I don't necessarily. I see the bill that speaks to the DNA collection as something that will benefit Guyana generally. I mean, especially in crime solving and so on. But that being said, why would they come with it under the cover of night? Like, instead of having open consultation, so that, like you rightly said,
That's
we do
right.
not, when we frame it, finally violate people's rights. You know, I would have thought that that would have been the most sensible thing to do. I mean, we don't. It's
That
not a
is
case where we
exactly the
condemn
point.
everything they do.
Yeah, and we had a procedure when we bring bills to Parliament in the Alliance for the coalition. You have to talk to stakeholders. Article 13 of our Constitution says that we must consult meaningfully with a number of stakeholders, especially those stakeholders who have who the bill would have a direct impact on.
Yeah.
The Bar Association, obviously, whenever it comes to any legislation, literally. So you gotta send it to them. As a matter of routine, Basil Williams and myself, when it came to crime matters, we sent it to the Bar Association. I don't think this one was sent because it didn't even pass me as the gatekeeper, if indeed it was there. Because obviously you put it down and you say, well, hold that one. I'm not even thinking about that one now. Leave it there. Once I start thinking about it, I will then send it to the Bar Association. I will send it to the police force. I will send it to certain other experts in the area and so on. What you think of this and so on. And then you will take it. If they say there should be amendments, you deal with the amendments. Or sometimes they sometimes give you some advice that you feel that you shouldn't apply at all. And then carry it to the Parliament.
Exactly. Now, quickly as we roll, there is this report of two planes. One, they said one plane was circling over Guyana, and then the people from narcotics and the police force tried to do surveillance exercise, and they probably chased them down too, and they ended up going up to Suriname and land there. And then there was this other one in the Kokwani area that eventually landed in the Kokwani area, but the craft was destroyed. Do you have any insight into what actually happened and what action is being taken now to ensure that, number one, we get a full report on what's happening there, and if there are any criminals, any elements who would have broken any law, if they are being brought to justice?
Yeah, well, I want to believe that there are agents of the mafiosi from Colombia and Venezuela. We had lots of insights. I can't tell you because most of them are confidential. But the general trend is for these planes to come from Colombia with their cocaine drop off somewhere in Venezuela, and then because of the length of time that they will take with the aviation fuel and so on, they got to refuel back someplace. And that Kokwani area and into Suriname, the canoe officers have indicated are prime areas where they do their stopovers.
Oh.
And the people within there that can quickly bulldoze airstrip, or I think there might be airstrips there too, where they can land. They quickly land, they load up their fuel again, and then they go sometimes right across to Africa. And from there, they then carry the thing to the northern countries, Britain and Brussels and these various countries that buy the cocaine and where there is a great demand and they pay a big price for. So it is the transit stops or the transit stops that are happening here. But of course, you have to have Guyanese who can get the aviation fuel to refuel the plane so that it could continue its onward journey. And there have been evidence that I came across as former public security minister, whereby there are people in those areas, indigenous people, and also foreigners. When I say indigenous, I mean Guyanese, um, um, and but also some Amerindian people too, but a lot of businessmen, East Indian businessmen, that are doing that nonsense there and are allowing these planes to do the stopover, and they get big payout for that, I understand, and then it lands either um, in Africa after that trip, or it goes to Suriname to some extent to make further collections there and so on. So it is a transit point really, and I believe that there are Guyanese who are involved, and I believe that there are Surinamis who are involved. As to whether the Chinese police force or army are involved, I doubt it. We had some very strict regulations about those things and inside scrutinizing and so on. But for all you know, these things are with big, big money, and easily somebody could take pay off and just provide these planes. So it is a very worrying thing for me, a troubling thing. We wanted to create, by virtue of instruments that we could put on certain tarmacs that can say when a plane is landing. We caught a couple of planes like that at the Letem airport, and so on. The Americans gave us a piece of equipment that you could put on the airport there, like an antenna. Short, they might not notice it, but we could see when planes are landing and touching down and all of that. And then they could get the army, call the people at Letem, rush to that place where we have put up these antennas, and you could catch plenty of them. We managed to catch a couple of planes like that. We got to put this in almost all these areas now so the antenna could do the pickup, because we ain't got that kind of heavy money for pay for this satellite imaging and so on. So it's when landing on the tarmac, these antennas could pick these things up. But I don't know if Kanu is still working to get all of that done, but one would hope so.
All right, Mr. Ramsey, I have two final questions to you, and then I'll give you a chance to just say whatever else you want to say. What's the situation as far as you are aware with the folk at Jeepcom? I know that they wanted to sack them the other day, but two of our commissioners did not show up. What's the current situation there? Why are they so adamant that these guys must go?
Well, the PPP members that brought the motion, they want them to go because clearly in their eyes, these persons are culprits. They feel that they did one set of mischief and all kind of thing on the 2nd of March elections. We are saying that even if you so feel, provide the evidence for it. And also, now that they have been charged, let the constitutional precept of presumption of innocence apply. Remember, they had a president now that had 19 fraud charges. The director of public prosecution saw fit to file against him because the evidence was so much and so strong. Yet the presumption applied. He became a member on the list and a president today. So you must allow the presumption of innocence to apply to these employees to the extent that you allow the court to rule on the matter. In the meantime, you do not double jeopardize the people by knocking them off because you're taking away their employment now. And it will be like a double whammy when if you do that. So wait until they're convicted, if they're convicted, and then you can take that action. That is what is the norm of Guyana. But the people don't want that. They want to be presumptuous about it. They want to act prematurely. And that is where I think that is obviously wrong. Because I don't feel that these charges that they have brought is in any way with any merit. They're all politicized and with a lot of they will not be substantiated. But just because the PPP don't want them, the PPP has this way with it that it will then get rid of them, just like what they tried there with David Patterson. And so we have to give it a fight. I understand the meeting yesterday didn't come off because there wasn't a quorum. But in any event, at some point in time, it will have to be voted on. And a very important person to put that vote, because I rather suspect it will be a 3-3, and it will then depend on the Madam Claudette Singh. I have great respect for her, and I believe that she will do the right thing. That is to rule that we should await the trial of the issues and the determination by the magistrate, rather than doing a premature thing of knocking the people off. They should be allowed to do their work in there. In the meantime, if the PPP distrust them, they must have greater eyes than them. That's all. And you allow them to work. There are lots of people inside of the PPP who were charged and they were allowed to work. You know? So why now all of a sudden?
As a man who, as you said earlier, came from the belly of the beast, could this be an attempt to move the people that they feel are going to be fair and square and not prejudiced in any way in another election, and so that they can install their own people who will, like, you know, in some of these committees and so on, that they're forcing the people there, so that they can have a free reign, like I said, changing the rules, changing the state of play all along to,
and changing the personnel. Yes, and changing the personnel. They will want to put in people of the Gokul Buru quality.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Who literally stole a seat from us. We won that seat at Region 10 in 2006.
I remember that.
They manipulated the numbers. And when me and Sheila Holder, Raphael Trockman went in there, we proved to Gokul Buru and Steve Surge Valley that this thing wrong. Y'all make a miscalculation. Then they said they're going to get back to us to correct the situation. The PPP call them up and tell them what nonsense they're up. The declaration has been made, and that's the end of the matter. They must go by an elections petition. Some people are utilizing the same method now for the March 2nd arrangement. Let the declarations be made and you carry it to the elections petition.
Exactly.
That is what got me. I tell you honestly. I said, well, that should have been the procedure. I didn't see the SOPs as they're talking about and so on. So I said, well, fine, whatever the declaration the man must make, because that was the precedent sent by Gokul Buru. Now, when you could have the Gokul Buru doing that to AFC, but when a Mingo tried to make the declaration, they said it is all wrong. Well, whatever it is, we had a recount. One set of irregularities were found and a whole set of things. But these people want to get rid of them to put back those types of people that they will have absolute confidence in, and I could understand that being their whole roots now, and so that they could remain there for a long time by virtue of doing the things to the AFC like they did when a seat was taken away from Region 10, and they gave that seat to Sam Hines. That is how Sam Hines got into Parliament.
Well, talking about Sam Hines, he's the ambassador designated to the USA. I mean, is that something that could fit? Because isn't he one of the persons who served in the corrupt regime? And I mean, we've objected to quite a number of names that they had put forward before. Is this one that could sit in that position?
Well, I don't know what could have been the arguments. I don't understand it. Look, American have taken worse people and made ambassadors, I know, than Sam Hines from other countries that are dictators, and they have appointed them for their certain interests that they have. Um, you just got to go around the Middle East countries. Saudi Arabia got some people killing the journalists, Khashoggi and all of that. You got a lot of them, but they still take them because as a sovereign country, if the government of the day appoints or anoints somebody, they will have to accept them unless, of course, they state a reason why they don't want Sam Hines. That is generally the rules that govern the game. If the PPP wants Sam Hines to go there, well, there's nothing that we could do because that is within their limited power, and they can do that. As to what might be the reason that so far he has not been appointed, I really can't say. But it does appear that when they were talking about giving young people more opportunities, they are literally taking away a young person from a diplomatic position here to give a man who has served as prime minister for some 23 years and then served in a lot of capacities. And so you're denying a fresh mind that could serve for another 23 or 33 years by denying him the taking up of that office. And I rather suspect that that is what makes it annoying for me, that you're going to give Sam Hines that position. Sam has served us and served us well as prime minister, if I may say that. But don't now go and then deny a young batsman into the team simply because you feel that although Clive Lloyd is now 53 or 73, you're going to pick Clive Lloyd. No, you have to start giving other people opportunities. And that is what I feel that also Sam Hines should have opted out and say, well, this is not it. Not at a diplomatic circle. Give some young Guyanese that know foreign relations and know a number of things. Sam ain't really know much about foreign relations either.
Precisely my point.
Yeah, and why are you doing that? So it's important that we also make our comments in this regard and that there be some honor in the Sam Hines in saying, man, look, I don't want this thing anymore. And galangi way.
Final question for you, sir. If you don't mind, since you indicated to me earlier that you would prefer, you would like to be here in the diaspora, updating people on what's going on in Guyana, but the patriot in you would not allow you to leave while your comrades are suffering via the floods. Can you give us an update on the flood situation throughout the country?
Well, only this morning I was talking to a friend of mine in the Maikoni area. He told me that last week the water was about 6 inches higher than normal. And normal means that when it is on the ground level. Now it's 6 inches higher. At this today, he said that it has gone down by 3 inches, but the rain fell again. And he doesn't understand what is causing this thing not to run off as quickly. In the quarantine area, the rain had eased up for a couple of days, but still, all the places are still waterlogged. Gardens, people homesteads, their yards and so on, waterlogged. And in certain areas in my Blackwood still, water still up, higher. Georgetown this morning, I understand, was heavily with water in many of the streets because of the heavy rainfall this morning. I was to go back today to quarantine, and but I doubt whether I will go today. uh, and I am getting reports in, and a lot of I ask video clips from the AFC representatives within these regions, and I'm getting a whole lot of clips. It is a terrible situation, really, really bad situation. All over have been flooded up, and all over are suffering huge, huge in a huge way. So this thing is going to create a big economic debacle in another couple of months if it hasn't started yet. Imagine the prices of foodstuff now gone up by double. Whatever you used to get for $500 belanje, you got to pay $1,000 and more now. When I went up Berbice Sunday, was it Sunday? Yes. When I went up Berbice, we stopped in at the churches for chicken sandwiches, and they told us that the chicken sandwich will not have tomatoes nor lettuce and whatever little greens they put there, the cucumber and so on. I said, why? They said because all the farmers that used to give them, all they now cannot give because all have been flooded out. The word that the Quarantinian people just use is that all them garden products melt out. And it's indeed that graphically captures it too. It melt out. And that is what is happening. A lot of people now don't have their poultry. Chickens have been destroyed, goats and sheep and cattle and so on. So the thing is tremendously bringing big sufferation here in Guyana. Suffering. And these guys now talking with the Sheikh Al-Matuk and whatever, and they don't have, and then combine that very toxic combination it is with the COVID scenario.
Yes.
Over 411 people dead already. It's the highest.
But the latest figure as of this morning is 437.
Sorry, 437. I little backdated behind the clouds in this matter. 437 people. You know, and this is the trouble. And then going and buy vaccine, $600 million more than you would have normally bought. You sell out literally $600 million. That could have gone a far way for those people who have been destroyed by this flooding.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So now that they've done that, is Parliament putting anything in place to help people alleviate the suffering?
Well, the Parliament did approve. We did not vote against it. $10 billion for flood relief, which is going to go to the CDC, Civil Defense Commission, for purposes of ensuring that people get hampers, people get... What we were very quarrelsome with is the fact that there's discrimination in the grant of the relief. But $10 billion was approved, and we are of the opinion that lots more should be approved, but we wanted what is called a system that is going to be non-discriminatory in the allocation of whatever the benefits or reliefs would be. So it is important that we still fight for that, and we ask our supporters out there, if they have not gotten, give us their names and numbers, so we will tell the CDC officials and the head, Mr. Kester Craig, I think, Kester, yeah, to ensure that there is a proper distribution of whatever COVID relief is. But it's $10 billion.
All right, well, that seems to be a good start. I rather suspect that they will have naturally to be a second phase of that, and I rather suspect too that there will be need for a rigid scrutiny process to ensure that the nonsense that went on with the pink slip thing, the COVID whatever.
Yeah, well, that is why, Branford, we are asking and we are begging them, literally. Begging them to please engage us in the opposition to ensure that this process is scrutinized properly. Let us be members in their COVID committee. They don't want us to be in their COVID committee. And you know, when we started the COVID committee, we had indicated to them for them to come on and to all the systems. Mr. Granger made it quite clear, let them come on there. but they didn't come on. But that is how the PPP is. Now they're not going to engage us. But when the country start getting real bad, you're going to see how they're going to start hauling us in and telling us that, oh yeah, well, the APNU AFC is now there and they are not coming up with ideas and so on. Because the cancer would have gotten too rotten at that late stage. And we may not want to be of any help because we cannot be of any help. But at this stage, we are asking, please let us, because like David Patterson, the knowledge he has about the city and the flooding in the city and other places, his expertise can come in handy. But they don't want that. They arrogantly want a unilineal and unilateral method about governance in Guyana. And so that is what we have to talk about all the time.
Yes, sir, definitely. All right. I've seen that we have come right upon the time, 19 after the hour of
Yeah,
9
well,
o'clock.
it was nice being here. I
Thank
want to say that, this is a useful program. I don't know how much views you have, but whatever it is the amount, it is good to at least our narrative be carried across there so that people will understand what we are saying and so that it is that they could appreciate us for doing that. Also, it helps to enlighten a lot of people as to what the opposition is doing. A lot of people feel that we are not doing enough. Well, there's that limited thing that we could do. I am going to talk back to Joe about sending a team to New York, talking to people as early as possible. We have to find funding and all for that. And it is important then that we also listen from people like you, the reporters who have another perspective on certain issues, so that we can then come the middle path and ensure that we engage, continue the engagement, and see this major disaster through, COVID plus flooding. So
Yes,
thanks
sir.
for being here.
Thank you so much for coming on. And I want to tell you, we were up to as many as 380 persons when I just glanced across. It might have bumped up more than that. I wasn't sure
That's
because I
great.
wasn't
Yeah.
paying attention there all the time. But the numbers will increase in terms of the viewership because a lot of people are at work and they usually view when they get off of work. But you can
But
be
send me the
sure that
link. But
there's a
send me the
crew.
link so I could circulate within my circles.
Definitely, Mr. Weeks will ask you to ensure we do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramjattan, for joining us today. Thank you at home for being with us. One critical thing, we are on the verge of shutting the show down because we're not getting the kind of support that persons pledged in the beginning. Persons were saying, hey, you start a radio station, man, why you don't start a radio station? We're going to support. I said the thing is, it's a lot of time and resources that are necessary. Persons were saying, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but that's not happening. So we are going to be forced at some stage to pull the plug on the show because Mr. Weeks has got to pay his bills. I haven't sent anything for him in the last 2 months, so I have to do pay his bills. So I'm not even sure how he's making out down there, but we're still rolling. But just please remember us. Remember, if you benefit from the show, you need the show to stay on. We don't have advertisements being shown here or shared here, so you would have to drop a little something in the kitty so that Mr. Weeks can take care of those bills over there. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to your presence again, or your company again, rather, on Friday when we have the Honorable MP, Mr. Figueroa from Linden, joining us. Have a wonderful day. God's richest blessing. Until then, I am out.